Okay. Does the Bible have Bible college in it?
Does the Bible have Bible college in it?
Which I know is circular.
Not in the way that we would define Bible college. Like where you go and you get this degree, that's not the way it is in Scripture, or the way that we see it in Scripture in that time period. Okay. It's not the way that it is at all, actually. But is there training? Yes. So, in Acts chapter 22, Paul is asked about, kind of his background and that kind of thing.
Oh, no. And I think I get scared every time Paul talks in this podcast at this point.
Why?
Because he just says some stuff.
That's awesome.
He be saying things.
That's awesome. All right. So in Acts 22, verse 1, brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense before you. When they heard that he was addressing them in Aramaic, they became even quieter, and he continued, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city, educated at the feet of Gamaliel, according to the strictness of our ancestral law. I was zealous for God, just as all of you are today. And so he actually introduces the fact that he has been trained by one of the most highly respected Jewish rabbis of the day. Okay. And so for Jews, this was their training, their Bible college, if you were. Was they would be under the teaching, the schooling of a rabbi. Okay.
Was this a Christian Jew rabbi?
No. So this is an individual who is not a believer in Jesus as the Messiah. Okay. And so he's a Jewish rabbi and one of the most well-esteemed, well-respected Jewish rabbis of the day. And Paul is saying, listen, I learned under him. I was educated. And what that would have looked like would have been that they, because from a young age, Jews go to synagogue, or would go to synagogue to learn Torah, to learn Hebrew, to learn the Jewish traditions.
Even in the Bible times?
Mm-hmm. Even in the Bible times. And so that was a common thing. And so at this level, what Paul is saying was, I actually had him as my rabbi, where I actually went even deeper into Torah, deeper into the Hebraic language, deeper into being able to interpret Torah, and interpret all of the Old Testament scriptures. And so this was a big thing that Paul's talking about. So this is the way that schooling was for them. It was, you had an individual that was quote unquote like a rabbi, which rabbi means teacher, a teacher that was leading a school. Okay. And it wouldn't be in the way that we think of like a Bible seminary or college where you have multiple professors and you're pursuing this certain degree. It wouldn't be like that at all. You would have the rabbi, that one rabbi would be your teacher. And so that would be the training. And it's only
for men, apparently.
It's only for men. Correct.
Okay.
And so for Paul, that was what, that's what he's saying. And so it's, just looked very different. And so one of the things Jesus did as a rabbi was he went and asked, specifically 12 people to follow him and allow him to be their rabbi. Okay. Now it was different. That was very different for him to choose people. Often in this day and time, you would go and ask to be, you would actually go to the rabbi and say, I want to follow you. Okay.
Oh.
But Jesus was actually going and pulling people in. But what they did was the equivalent of what Paul had. They were with Jesus, with their rabbi. And of course, he was a traveling itinerant rabbi, not just living in one city, teaching in one place.
Because Paul wasn't a disciple.
Not of Jesus.
So he went and followed
a
different rabbi guy afterwards later. After all the disciples got rabbied by Jesus.
Okay, well, this is probably happening simultaneously a little bit, okay? In other words, Jesus is there, okay? He's teaching, he's preaching, he has his disciples, right?
Okay.
Matthew, Mark, not Mark, excuse me, I'm just rattling off Gospels. Like Matthew and James and John and Peter and that group. And so
And then at the same time, Paul was
correct.
Okay.
Because
learning how to kill Christians.
Well, not learning how to kill Christians. Although when he talks about that he was zealous for God, the idea of him being a zealot is really what it's kind of talking about. It wasn't just about killing Christians. It was about killing individuals that they believed were blaspheming
the Jewish
God.
faith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And that were claiming a false Messiah. Okay.
Oh, all right.
And so they thought they were doing it from a right place. Okay. And so his teacher was, again, really well known, really well respected. We see him mentioned in Acts chapter 5 and addressing the Sanhedrin. And again, this individual was a Pharisee, okay, and same as Paul,
okay, and
a teacher of the law, a rabbi. And it says even in Acts chapter 5, verse 34, that he was honored by all people, and here he is, and he addresses the Sanhedrin. And what's interesting is he even had a sense of, hey, let's just kind of see how this goes before, let's don't persecute the Christians maybe as wrongly as you think we should, or as harshly as you think we should. Let's don't kill them. Let's see where this goes. Let's don't stir up any more trouble than we have to. If this is God's really behind it, it'll be proven. If not, it'll just, flicker out. No big deal.
What a weird time.
Crazy weird time. And so, but for Paul, again, he had really good, solid teaching. It's really good learning in the Old Testament scriptures. And that is the things that Jesus would have been teaching his disciples as well.
But new, but different.
But seeing it through a messianic lens. Seeing it, or through a new covenant lens would probably be the better way to phrase it, right? Okay. Yes, because they would have grown up knowing the basic, they would have had the basic understandings of the law. They were praying the prayers. They were reading and reciting the scriptures. Because remember, all of this is oral, right? Like they're not walking around with scrolls, okay?
Okay.
So they're teaching and having to remember and retain all of this. Not just the disciples, but anyone being taught by a rabbi at this day and time. I mean, it's oral teaching. It's all about, memorization and repetition. And, you say the same things, same scriptures, same passages, same prayers over and over and over and over again. So it just gets in you. And so Jesus would have been doing the same thing with his disciples. That prayer where we see Jesus teaching them how to pray, he probably told them that over and over and over and over again, until they got it. And you probably wonder, well, why, how do we know that these teachings are right? Well, the Sermon on the Mount or the other teachings, those disciples probably heard Jesus teach that over and over and over and over again. So, and they were how it would have been told to memorize it themselves.
Okay. And
so it was just embedded in them. So when Matthew and John are writing it down, or Mark and Luke are writing it down from hearing it from Peter and from the others, like they're getting this firsthand accounts, and they've got it in them, and that's why they're able to. That's why the teachings look so similar.
And then you learned it all at Bible school.
And then I go to Bible school and learn it. So yeah, the teaching and training was definitely different in that day and time. And it was more like an apprenticeship, of Jesus. We're going to follow him around. We're going to learn these things, do the things he does. So.
All right. Well, that's a question later.
Okay.
So let's do that right now then.
Okay.
If you're done with that.
Yeah, sure.